Hello and welcome to another episode of Expendables with Fibonacci X. Expendable is a series of conversations with operators and investors where we try to demystify the building pillars of venture building. Today we have Vishal with us from OneStack, and OneStack is solving an interesting problem for Bharat and something I think folks living in tier 1 may not be able to relate. Going to a rural bank is a very different story. As a kid, I grew up in Western UP. I'm a first generation college graduate.
Wow.
And my family is into farming, right? So a lot of our initial bank accounts were, let's say, in Vidu Grameen Bank, Prathama and all these. So I have been to those banks.
Okay.
And still we have branches in those districts in Western UP where we see regional rural banks, right? So interesting, and that's why I wanted to speak to you, because Bharat is a theme for us, and we always get excited to speak to founders who are solving something fundamental for tier 2 and beyond, because our pyramid is that at the base there are a lot of issues in India which needs to be fixed. And the overall consumer story of India, which is sold by investors to the global community, actually that is one of the major anchors, is that the demand at the bottom of the pyramid will get unlocked in the coming decade or so. I mean, that has been the story for last 20 years, right? Even when I was on the advisory side, I would always see investors pitching that to LPs, that this is the scope. So tell us about OneStack. Instead of me introducing, why don't you tell us what is OneStack building?
Yeah. So, as you rightly said, right? So we typically ask people, tell us how many banks you think are there in India, right? And the first typical answer we get is, maybe 40, maybe 50, because as we call the top 1% of Indians of this country, what we see is we might have 20-30 PSU banks, right, maybe 20-30 private banks, and some maybe 40 odd foreign banks. That's what we primarily are aware of. What we don't realize, as you said, right, if you go beyond metros, actually there are 2,000 plus cooperative banks. And then there is this layer of 1 lakh plus cooperative credit societies who are the financial engine of this country. This particular cooperative society and banks is about 11% of financial health of the country. So they take care of, at overall level, balance sheet is about 2,40,000 crores. And these typically have, 11% of that comes from that place. Now, from what has happened over the last 10 years in India is a huge conversion of economy from cash economy, unorganized economy to digital economy. 2016 when UPI was launched, Aadhaar was already there, and then the payment stack in 2016 itself and after COVID just boomed, right? Today we do about 20 billion transactions through UPI. But what has happened is, if you look at even NPCI stacks, that concentration is still with the top 10% of Indians. So as per a study, actually, if you take the top 10%, 80% of those Indians say our primarily go-to payment method today is UPI. But as soon as you go to the next level, it becomes 30%. So that's the digital gap we are talking about. So while private sector banking came in this country in early 2000s and brought a lot of technology, mobile app came, digital banking came in this market. So, but it kind of didn't percolate down so fast because private banks were obviously slow to grow and they were only catering to the top 1, top 2 HNIs and those kind of people, right? So it didn't kind of cater down. So basically, but then what happened is 2016 Jio came in play, UPI came in play, and suddenly mobile banking kind of grew very, very quickly. Today, to give you some stats, today we have 1 billion internet subscribers in this country. Mm-hmm. But we have only 30 crore UPI users in this country, right? So that's just 30%, right? Then we have 35 crore digital banking users in this country. Now, out of that 35 crores, more than 50% is with fintechs, not with banks.
Right.
Right. So that's the length and breadth we are talking about when we say out of 1 billion internet smartphone users, only 30% are currently using financial services on mobile. Of that, only 50% are actually using a banking app.
Right.
Right. So that's the gap. That's the overall market gap. But if you go a level down where we work, cooperative banks, and with those 40 crore Indians, it's even worse. Right. While all of these guys today have a smartphone, the biggest penetration of social media, WhatsApp, e-commerce is with tier 1 to tier 2 rural guys. But as soon as you go for financial transaction, it's much, much lower. Right? The penetration has been much, much lower. Why? Because the private sector, public sector banks has not reached that level. Right? They have not gone beyond tier 1. And the second is, none of these cooperative banks have become digitized. Right? Even digital banking from a PSU perspective has happened very recently.
Right.
And what we are basically solving is, we are trying to now figure out how to digitize this segment. So how to digitize the next 50 crore, 40, 50 crore Indians and get them confidence to use mobile phone for their financial transactions as we kind of digitize them and get them into the formal economy of this country.
Correct. So PSU, I clearly remember, right, around 2003-4 major shift happened, right, in terms of NEFT and all these systems came into
CBS
play,
came into play, yeah.
right? If we take a step back and think about the role these credit societies and cooperative banks play, right, clearly in terms of access to, let's say, input side of agriculture, let's say fertilizers on credit, you get subsidies and other things through these societies and cooperative banks. How much impact does it have? Do you think will it have once these are digitized?
So, see, simple way of looking at it is that today 95% of cooperative banks, so 0% of cooperative credit societies are linked with NPCI. So they don't even provide a UPI facility.
Okay.
That is number one. From a cooperative bank perspective also, so all cooperative banks has a RBI license for banking, but only 5% to 7% of them are actually linked with NPCI. What does that mean? That they cannot provide UPI facility to their customers. As basic as that. Right. So then what happens as you go to the merchants, which we always talk about in India, there are about figure go from 65 crores to 70 crore merchants. And if you look at that, majority of those small MSME and SMEs actually bank with cooperatives today. And if they don't give them UPI facility.
Okay.
So what happened in the last 10 years is a lot of fintech started giving them UPI facilities because customer like you and me wanted to pay them through UPI, right?
Correct.
So if you go down and you go to a chai wala, you want to pay through UPI now. You don't want to carry cash. Now that guy is a cooperative bank customer. Now the bank didn't give him UPI, but his customer wants to pay him UPI. So what he did, a Paytm guy actually came to him and said, here is a QR code, here is a sound box. Start accepting UPI. But at the back, what happened is he opened an account for him in a private sector account. Whosoever was the partner account, either it a Paytm payment account or any other bank account, right? But it's a checking account. His primary account remained with cooperative. So when he started accepting money in that checking account, he couldn't save because it's just a checking account. He couldn't pay his loan through that. So he started using that money to pay his vendors through UPI. That's it, right? And then basically he used to go at the end of the month or whenever, what is the amount left, he'll kind of withdraw it and go back to his cooperative and just submits it, right? That was the kind of chain which started happening in the economy. By digitizing cooperative bank and giving him the UPI, now that bank goes to the same customer and says, here's your bank's UPI. Right? So the collection which he was doing in a checking account starts happening through his cooperative account.
Right.
And once he starts happening in his cooperative account, his loan starts getting paid automatically. Whatever his OD facility he had,
right.
Earlier he would take the OD facility, use it, and then can pay it at the end of the month. Now it is automatically getting regenerated. as
Right.
he is collecting in the same account. That is number one. Second, whatever collection he has and the net balance he has, he can save in a FDRDs with a cooperative account.
Hmm.
So a lot of that digitization play which happened for a person like you and me, where you could save, pay instantly, take insurances, get into credit, right? Formal credit is all can happen for those guys also,
Hmm.
because he starts having a digital history.
Right.
Once he starts having digital history, you can push that data to the bureau and say, yeah, here's a payment which he's done for his loans, here's the payment collection he's doing. So all of that starts getting utilized, and all those new to credit customers start getting primary data and
Right.
start getting added to the credit pool of the country.
And how many cooperative banks are there in India?
So currently, the way the scale Kulmani is that every state has a state cooperative bank.
Hmm.
So typically, a state cooperative bank works with a state government. Typically, all the exchequer's money go through that. The way it happens is there's a state cooperative bank, then there are district cooperative banks,
Jila Sehkari Bank.
Jila Sehkari Bank, and then there are PACs, which is the primary agriculture cooperative societies.
Right.
So the money flow, even DBT, happens through this layer where state sends to DCCB sends to PACs sends it to the farmer. And then the collection happens also this way, right? So that's the state level cooperative banks. So there are 34 state cooperative banks, there are 350 odd Jila Sehkari Bank or district cooperative banks, and there are 1 lakh cooperative credit societies, which are PACs. Then there are private cooperative banks, which is called urban cooperative banks, which are basically around 1,500 in number. These are typically community banks where each person who has an account is a member also of the bank. So same cooperative principle. And typically these are community banks. So if a town like Godhra will have 4 communities, each community will have their own cooperative bank.
Right.
And every person will have an account and will be a member of that bank. What does that mean? That at the end of the day, whatever profit is left is distributed among the members only.
Okay.
Depending on the shareholding which they have.
Right. So out of these cooperative bank, is there also a trend? Let's say there are districts in Maharashtra or UP which have a large number of sugar mills. Do they tend to have more of such societies? Because that's what my understanding is.
So if you go back in the history, right, cooperative movement started in 1890 in this country. So first cooperative bank was actually established in province of Madras in 1904 at that point in time. And then each province took it up, because after the 1857 and all of that, there was a lot of need to give credit to the farmer, because India was primarily an agriculture society. And even today, although it happens, the farmers used to take loans from local landlord owners and would get into exorbitant debt and all of that. So they started these cooperative banks, and then it was picked up by West primarily and other southern belt. And then it kind of came into North. So cooperative movement as such is very old in this country, and they've been there for ages. So they kind of formalized it in 1904 by passing a Cooperative Credit Society Act. And then basically it kind of grew. And today we have a system where it is completely democratized. There is every state has a state cooperative act, and then all the banks come under RBI now directly. So from a regulatory perspective, it is same license which a cooperative bank has, with some restrictions obviously, like any other bank has. So they have a banking license, and state cooperative basically work with state governments to figure out their structure.
Okay, so it will be similar to, let's say, Schedule 4 commercial bank.
No, it's not a Schedule 4 commercial bank. So there is a separate section of a cooperative bank under RBI regulations. But so there's a Banking Regulation Act 1949, under which there's a separate section where the cooperative banks guidelines are there.
Okay.
So this is a very recent phenomena. Earlier, they used to have primarily the law which used to govern them was the State Cooperative Act, and the secondary was RBI. But in 2020, RBI said nothing doing. All cooperative banks will come under directly me.
Okay.
So I will be the primary regulator for you, like I am for a scheduled commercial bank or for a SFB or for any other purposes. And they will basically form all the regulations which I have. You will also have to follow it like everyone else follows it. So they went from let's say there was a lot of individual directors and all of that, to elected board, which is now there in every cooperative bank. They have ensured that the risk compliance is much better. So RBI actually after 2020 came up with circulars after circulars on specifically on cooperatives, how they should have technology usage more, how their members should be treated, what kind of disclosures they should have, what kind of reporting they need to do to RBI, and so on and so forth. And thirdly, it has also led to better financial growth for them. So today, if you look at last 2019 to 2024, which is the data which is available with RBI, the cooperative banks have grown about 2x in their deposit, 2.5x in their loans, and they have grown their return on assets by 0.5. It used to be 0.5% earlier. Now it is close to 1%. So a lot of that improvement has happened once the RBI has taken over a lot of these cooperative banks. And that's why you see a lot of action by RBI. I mean, everyone reads the news saying this cooperative bank was penalized by RBI, that bank was penalized by RBI. So although the sector comes into play in a very negative sense, but it basically tells you RBI is so proactive with these guys. RBI also penalizes Kotex and HDFCs also, so it's not like that. But because of that, there's a lot of discipline which has now started coming into these banks.
Right. And so obviously more transparency, reporting is better.
Everything. So if from an expense perspective, from board perspective, from regulation perspective, everything.
Right. So the main problem, just to summarize, which you are solving is that these credit societies and cooperative banks don't have connectivity to the digital world.
Yes.
From a banking side. That's the main problem, right?
The way we put it, Kulmani, is that we are basically digitizing half of the banking sector, which currently is still not digitized to the real, the current world needs or modern world needs.
Okay.
Be it from a back-end perspective, which is called a core banking software, or a front-end perspective, which is like a mobile phone or mobile app by a cooperative, or getting them connected to UPI and all those other kind of things.
So how do they maintain their books if they don't have core banking system?
So they have.
Okay.
It's not like they don't have. They have, but they have core banking which is easily 10-15 years old. So, and a very local software. So what they did is, when they saw core banking happening, instead of going to a player like an Infosys, or because they were very big players, they went to a local mom and pop shop of a software provider. And basically they said, okay, can you build me a core banking software? So that guy had an accounting software. He kind of repackaged it and gave it to them. So they have some form of software which they use, which they call it as core banking software. And they basically utilize their transactions or record their transactions over there. But now the world has changed, right? The technology has changed. But these are old, rigid systems, typically batch processing, all those kind of old world problems are there. Now RBI wants them to report every month, every quarter, every year in a certain format. Their software is not ready for that. RBI has come up with a circular saying for your core banking, all these things should be there. Your data protection act, your data protection should be there. Your risk metrics should be implemented. Your customers should be able to access it. All those kind of things, right? Now, these guys typically don't have all of that. The certifications which RBI permits, right? So it says it should be PCI DSS, it should be ISO 27001 and all of that. So none of these players are like that. Because these are very local players. So Gujarat, Ahmedabad will have one guy who will basically be catering to this district. Then there'll be another guy in Godhra, there'll be another guy in Nasik, like that.
Okay.
So that's how they currently work. And our idea is, can we formalize it and give it to them on a SaaS basis with a new tech CBS, which can be open on the cloud, scalable, and with all the new compliances which is required.
Right. Got it. And how did you come to this idea that we want to build this? I know Amit is not here, but a few are building it together.
So, very frankly, Amit's idea, not my idea. So, Amit actually used to build a company called AirPay.
Okay.
It's a payment gateway company. So he used to work with banks a lot. So he's one of the guy who actually brought some of the PSU banks into acquiring. So what does it mean is when a card transaction happen, there is a lot of banks issue cards, issue credit cards or debit cards. But the acquiring is done by mostly top 6 or 10 banks. What does by acquiring means? The POS machine which a merchant has, the bank who provides that POS machine is the acquirer, right? Because the transaction happens on that. So he brought a lot of PSU banks, including Bank of Maharashtra, into acquiring, saying we will give you white label solutions where you can get acquiring, because the fee which every credit card MDR, which is called merchant discount rate, gets divided into acquirer, issuer, and the network. So that's how it worked. And then he started going to other banks, and he realized that there is a lot more banks than what he thought there are in this country, and they face a much bigger challenge than just the payments, right? Their challenge is, as I described, right, very bad core banking,
right,
no digitization, no mobile app for the customer. I mean, when I first time moved in, saw a cooperative bank, my parents are in SBI. So my father has been with SBI since 80s, 81 or 82. And it felt like I moved into an SBI branch in 90s, right? Same
yes,
old type, one computer somewhere lying, somebody will come and do the data entry in that. Lot of vouchers, those pink and green and blue slips. Then a lot of staff for cash and all of that. Those tokens, cash tokens used to be there and all of that. So you just feel like you are 2 decades, just your life of 2 decades in terms of banking are washed away. So imagine, Kulmani, 50% of India's bankable population still banks like you used to bank 20 years before.
Yes.
Right. So we, basically he saw that and we saw that and we started saying, okay, can we do something about this more than payments? And he started building the product post-COVID and launched the company in 21. While the company is registered in 19, but post the product, etc., started getting built post-COVID. And that's how we went to the cooperative credit societies first. We gave them a mobile app, simple mobile app, saying so that your members can at least see your balances, etc. on mobile app, right? Today, otherwise, the customer, for even balance check has to go to a branch. There is no way other than that, right? If he has to see the credit has come from my guy who is migrated in the city to my account, he has to go to the branch and check. There is no other way. So he gave everyone a free mobile app saying, give it to your customer so that at least they can see their balance. Basic banking, at least they can do in the thing. And it just took off in Maharashtra. It just we had in 6-7 months, about 200 societies working with us.
While he was at AirPay?
No, after AirPay, he left in 19.
Okay,
this is after AirPay. He launched OneStack in 21, built the product and launched it in Maharashtra for cooperative credit societies.
I am assuming credit societies will be big in Maharashtra because Maharashtra is very also big. Sugarcane.
Right? Very big. So cooperative credit societies in Maharashtra, some of the credit societies are bigger than banks. 20,000, 30,000 members, 1,000 crore, 2,000 crore balance sheet and stuff like that.
Same Western UP also has a lot of sugarcane.
Exactly.
So wherever you see cash crops, you will see farmers groups coming together
and building something like this because they needed credit. And this credit actually in erstwhile day, bank also used not provide, right? Bank will say take loan, but start giving me EMI from tomorrow. While this is like, I will take loan today, then there'll be a crop, and then I will pay the amount, right? So it's a different product which is required. I have seen cooperatives for artisans in UP, where there's a group of artisans who have a very different need because they need the thread, the cloth, and all of that at a particular time, and then it takes them, a year or so to build what they are building. And then once they sell it, they pay back the loan.
Yeah. It makes sense. So it's very nuanced in that way.
Yeah.
And this is, I'm saying, like even before the Kisan credit cards came,
much
right?
before. As I said, right, cooperative movement is more than 100-year-old. So Kisan credit card came now, right?
Right.
And the other thing is it's very community-led. So whatever may happen, I have seen cooperative banks where the customers will come and say, my 3 generation before used to bank with this bank. So my great grandfather, grandfather, dad, and now I. Right? So I have that kind of history sitting in cooperative banks. But that guy is still new to credit. Why? Because the cooperative bank didn't get digitized. So the data always remained with the bank.
Right.
Right. But if you can digitize that data and pull it to the bureau, it is such a big, it's a primary data of that customer will have a much better credit score, because that cooperative bank not only knows of his generation, he also knows where he lives, where his shop is, where his house is. Maybe in the evening they're playing together cricket or whatever, right? So he has all the primary, like we talk to a lot of NBFCs come to us and say, okay, we look for alternate data to give credit, because NBFCs basically got into this country to cater to the same audience which cooperative banks cater to, saying, okay, cooperative banks are not giving you loans, we will give you loans. But they don't have the primary data. So we look for all kind of alternate data. Okay, he has a smartphone, he's buying on e-commerce website so much, and all those kind of alternate data, right? Social media and all of that. These banks have primary data of those customers and for generations, right? And they are in a much better position to give loans and collect loans, because they have both. Physical is already there.
Right.
You just have to provide them digital tools to digitize and fast track some of those decision making. But then they can collect very quickly. They will know whom to give, what amount to give. All those things they know.
So 2019 when it started, right? And then, so when did you join OneStack?
So I joined in 23.
So in last this 1.5 year, how has your understanding evolved? Like when you,
I started, me and Amit are batchmates from INSEAD, right?
Okay.
So we were always talking. He actually shifted from Bombay to Gurgaon post-COVID when he started OneStack, and we were always talking as my last role. And we used to travel to some of these places and we used to see what is happening. Because one of the things we always wanted to do was to make sure that we build a product which is required, not just build a product and then go. So we used to sit in banks and see what customers are looking for, what banks are looking for, and so on and so forth. Because we had practically no person whom we knew in banks, or we had no connections, or we had that ways no background also, right? So it was just you had to learn as you kind of build. So you used to sit in the bank, see these customers walk in, and we saw that profile of the customers have changing. So earlier, the grandfather will come or the father will come. Now the new generation is coming in these banks also. And we saw they are asking the bank, if Paytm can give me everything on phone, why I can't see even my bank balance on my phone when I'm banking with you. So that's where we started seeing, okay, there's a lot of things which can be done, right? And then basically we built the product, we saw that success, and that's when we raised our first seed round. And then after our pre-series A in 23, we started going to cooperative banks. And today in 1.5 years, we have 200 plus cooperative banks working with us, primarily on 2 solutions. One is mobile app and the payment services, the UPI and the Soundbox, which they give it to their merchants to make sure as I got the use case done. And parallelly, we built our own core banking, which is specifically for cooperative banks. We built our own, we're working with NPCI. So NPCI has this partner program where basically they certify the tech players that they have the technology to provide it to the banks. So we are certifying, we are getting certified. So if you go to NPCI partner program website, you'll see our name. So we are getting certified under UPI Switch, credit on UPI, RuPay, BBPS, and all those kind of things.